Welcome back to my YouTube channel. This week we looked at a very interesting topic, and that is crisis communication. This is a very important arm of communication, but unfortunately it's usually overlooked until the very last minute, hence having it executed haphazardly because of the difficult times of pressure, stress, quick turnaround times for things that makes it impossible to execute. I also went ahead to show what big brands do in order to overcome such issues when it comes to crisis management. So once again, my name is Priska Baike, aka the PR Lady UG. So let's get into it. Crisis management could actually be the most satisfying work you ever do as a communications person, only if it finds you prepared. So contrary to popular opinion that crisis causes problems for companies or brands, it's actually not true. What a crisis does is that it exposes the issues that you've neglected long enough for them to escalate into crisis as we see them unfold. So basically what a crisis is doing is it's showing you a repetitive issue that has now become a crisis because it has either been not resolved or ignored, or the company could even not be aware of it. So what a crisis does is essentially it highlights that issue for you, and if you organize yourself well internally, have the right comms and the right solutions, then like I said, it would become the most satisfying kind of communication that you ever do for a brand as a communication person. This takes me to our second issue. So our second issue was about speed vis-a-vis accuracy. Given the fact that during a crisis, a company is suddenly under a very critical public scrutiny, there is a rush by many companies to want to, clear their name, set the record straight, and issue, statement after statement. But then we also realize that when it comes to a crisis, your biggest advantage will be clarity. So beyond speed, you need to have clarity on what you want to say about the situation or what you do not want to say about the situation. Remember, attention is high at that time. Your trust has almost flowed to zero, and people are anticipating what you're going to say. So this is the time to move cautiously rather than fast. So while it's good to move fast, you have to make sure that you have clarity of what you are going to say, because being clear on what to say during a crisis is what makes the difference between a crisis that is handled well and a crisis that is mismanaged. So remember, always seek clarity first. Where you have to choose between speed and clarity, I would recommend clarity, because people can wait a little longer for a satisfactory explanation than getting piecemeal information that keeps getting corrected and does not, resonate with the brand and does not actually serve the purpose that it's intended for. And now that you have clarity, are you aligned internally as an organization before you go out with that information? So while the leadership might have clarity of the issue, it's important that the rest of the organization, from the top all the way to the customer service people, are aligned to that information or position before it hits the public. The biggest undoing in a crisis is when there is different information coming in from different touch points of the organization that is in a crisis. So what does it take for you to be internally aligned? It means that you will choose a position that the brand will take, choose who will speak for the brand, when and where. Choose the people you would like to speak to when it comes to your media stakeholders. Choose carefully who will not use your crisis against you. And then when it comes to the staff, make sure you brief each and everyone with the same information at the same time. That way you'll have single-mindedness in terms of messaging, and the public will receive one uniform message across all the different touch points. To simply put it, imagine a scenario where there is a crisis happening and a company puts up a statement on its website, and when you listen to them speaking in the press, it's different from what was put on their website. And when you go to their social media platforms, different information. You experience when you visit their service points, you have different information, and so on and so forth. So what I would like to remind you about the public is that during a crisis, they are not going to just simply listen to what you tell them. They'll be comparing all the kind of information that is circulating across the different channels and touch points. So you need to have alignment internally before you go to the public, because once that internal confusion hits the public space, it becomes almost impossible for the brand to reclaim the narrative of the crisis. You might want to listen to the fourth one carefully. The fourth trick when it comes to crisis communication is silence. Yes, I know many people will tell you, don't be silent, you have to say something. But look here, I'm not talking about you staying silent because you are not prepared. I'm not talking about you staying silent because you are confused and you're not in control of the situation. I am talking about strategic silence. And let's face it, sometimes when a crisis is just beginning, it's simply taking shape. And even you as the organization are still learning what the people out there expect of you. So it wouldn't be prudent to quickly make a statement before you've clearly gotten a grasp of what the crisis is about. Because then, if you hurry to make a statement, you will have to retract that statement at some point to make a follow-up or a correct statement. So what am I saying? Silence will save you from having to to make errors where you issue wrong communication. It will save you from being misleading and sounding disjointed as a company and not in control of your situation. And when I say silence, I am not insinuating that you are going to vanish and disappear and not avail any information. Contrary to that, all I'm saying is that you will be available and you will issue guidance in terms of when official communication will come in. You will acknowledge that you know what is happening and that you're working to resolve it. So that way, you're not really making any concrete statements, but you are buying time as you study and observe the situation, so that when you issue communication at the time it is ready, you are actually communicating once and getting it right. And lastly, let's face it, you cannot out-communicate a bad experience. You see, a crisis does not only test communication. A crisis is actually a signal of a broken experience. So it tests the entire organization, and it should be met with action, corrective action in this case. So while communication will play a vital role of shaping the narrative, of keeping tempers low, pacifying the public, it is not, and I repeat, communication does not on its own solve crisis. A crisis is solved at a product and service point, or whatever the experience that caused the issue. So while you are communicating, please ensure that the issue that sparked the crisis is being managed, and if possible, make it part of the narrative of your communication to reassure the public that they have been heard and their issues have been put under consideration. Because if you only keep communicating, putting up statements, putting out stories, addressing the press, but then weeks, months, years later, people still face the same issues that you are always coming out to clarify without measurable improvement after the crisis, then you are headed into something worse than the crisis itself, and now your credibility will be questioned. Because at the end of the day, a crisis is supposed to highlight an issue, so you resolve it and get back to business as usual. So do not think that simply putting out a statement and communicating is enough. Always remember to come back to the people and communicate once the issue has been resolved. And as always, remember to control the narrative, or the narrative controls you.